Hey, friendo, Steve here.
Al Larson.
Welcome back to Steve and Larson's Pro Wrestling Podcast, ruining pro wrestling podcasting since 2014. It's Wednesday, which means it's time for your hot takes. So, Larson, let's go. Who's up first?
Timothy Whalen here with a hot take. Says TKO is ruining pro wrestling, not John Felix Anthony Cena.
I mean, John Cena's, it would be nice if it seems like John Cena didn't have much of a plan in place to ruin pro wrestling. He did stumble upon an idea. John Cena goes away, YouTuber has the title, but then he teamed up with said YouTuber and said he embodies everything John Cena stands for. So I don't even know there's logic in that. But I don't think John Cena is really doing enough to ruin pro wrestling. If he was trying to put on awful matches like the one at Mania, but we saw Backlash, it was a perfectly entertaining.
It was an entertaining bout against Randall Keith Orton. Yeah, it seems like Cena talking about ruining wrestling is more of a threat as opposed to a fully fledged plan. TKO ruining pro wrestling. I mean, what we're seeing with WWE is the kind of commercialization of WWE's product to at least a similar degree as other major sporting events or sporting leagues with a number of advertisements everywhere. Even a lot of entertainment stuff. How many movies has there been with tons of product placement everywhere? But this, in terms of the sponsorships and product placements of WWE, I'm assuming this is part of what Timothy here is talking about.
Sure, yeah.
You know, it's obviously more akin to sports where there's, much like in MMA, there's ads on the ring mat, ads ringside, there's ads all over the place, there's sponsors for the show. And I get it. Especially with WrestleMania, it seemed to be more of like, hey, look how mainstream we are now. Look how commercially viable we are now as a business entity. In some respects, that seemed to be the focus of WrestleMania just as much as what was going on in the ring. Like between all the celebrities sitting ringside, all the sponsorships, all the pageantry and spectacle of it. Mm-hmm. So I obviously TKO's. I'm not going to say TKO's approach at WWE as like a private equity firm would approach a business per se, but it's obvious they're trying to wring every last dollar and cent they can out of every kind of revenue generating silo that WWE has.
Yeah, dude, like when the true changeover happened from Vince to Paul Levesque, it really did feel like, hey, we're going to listen to you. It felt like, the old McMahon shakeup. It's like, hey, we're going to listen to you. But really, it did kind of feel like, hey, listen, everybody, the old man's out. We're going to give you some focus. We're going to give you some direction. And I don't know if in terms of the actual quality of the stories being told, I think that has improved vastly over where we were with Vince McMahon. Still to this day, I think, things like R-Truth's contract not being extended, Carlito's, Sarah Logan's, the releases we saw last month or whenever that was, I don't think that has necessarily interrupted a pretty decent run of creative. It's the little things that I think the hardcore audience that is online a lot really pays attention to. But if you do too many things getting rid of R-Truth, that might have, and I know it's kind of a small, sort of a low-key change. Like it does make your product marginally worse. Mm-hmm. I'm not going to say significantly worse because he wasn't even on television to a significant degree. He didn't have a significant role beyond he shows up, makes people laugh. Obviously, he was in the main event last month, but let's be honest, that was kind of an outlier. He had not been in that situation maybe ever. I don't know. But if the philosophy is we're willing to do things that we know are going to piss off our fans, or we know is going to be a detriment to the product, even in a small way, we're going to do it to wring a couple more dollars out of this thing, then I don't think they're ruining it, but they're certainly not endeavoring to make it better. That
It's one
being
of those
said,
things.
well,
Sorry, go
let me just finish this. When you see things like Worlds Collide, I'm really interested in that show. I haven't been interested in AAA for a while, and I said this on the Raw recap. I don't know what long-term business ramifications that has on the industry. Probably not great, but they are able to generate significant positive buzz as well still. So I don't think that I do think it's a bit of an exaggeration to say TKO's ruining it all.
Yeah, I wonder if part of this is kind of akin to, like when someone's favorite band who plays the clubs and whatnot, finally achieves some measure of mainstream success. They're no longer kind of a niche musical act. They're now, charting with singles and albums and stuff like that. If it's
I don't know why I bring this up, but Kings of Leon used to be Southern rock, and then all of a sudden they turned into arena rock because they had like one song that took off, and so that's all they did.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So if it's kind of akin to that, where pro wrestling, for the longest time, even as of probably even 10 years ago, was very much a niche entertainment product. And now it's just in your face. We're trying to we're trying to find any and all avenues to make a few extra dollars here and there out of this enterprise. And maybe that's part of it too, is it's just, again, I keep going back to WrestleMania because it was really in your face at WrestleMania. And that might bother some people, and other people it might not bother at all, because I've watched a lot of sports in my day. The commercialization of sports broadcasts is very much in your face.
Mm-hmm, sure.
But that's something that's been the case for as long as I remember watching football or baseball or basketball. It's a little newer when it comes to pro wrestling.
It is, but have you noticed, I mean, I know you have, like, the Super Bowl. It's a lot different now than it was back in high school.
Yeah.
It's one thing for, and it's funny, dude, because when I worked for the Sacramento Kings for that, I mean, it was 4 years off and on in a very part-time way, but the entire time I was there, it was still run by the Maloofs. So you had digital, broadcast, everything, social media, kind of in its infancy. They were all under the same roof. They were all spearheaded by one guy. Now, every single thing has a multi-person department. They're owned by basically, he is a billionaire, and it's run like a corporation, like a large conglomerate, basically, you know?
Yeah.
And with the way things have gone, it felt back in the day, and that's like a last 15 year, 20 year kind of thing when, the landscape shifted so that everything is a lot more corporate. You watch these, like the Super Bowl, it's an entire day of the most cringy, overproduced, like, product.
That's been one of those things over the last 40 years. It's just been a gradual step by step. It's more.
It's inched its way up to the point where now it's so slick and like.
Yeah, it feels so sanitized and kind of
sanitized
of any sort of soul. The football aspect of the Super Bowl seems a small part of the overall Super Bowl package.
Yeah, right.
It seems like with WWE, I didn't mean to imply that the Super Bowl, the World Series, or NBA Finals, or any sporting event for that matter, has been for the last 50 years like super in-your-face commercial. It's been a part of it. It's been an existing part of it for a long time. And yes, in a lot of respects, it's gotten more in your face. But it feels like with WWE, especially since the TKO acquisition, merger, whatever you want to call it, like it's pedal to the metal. They've really been accelerating the process of catching up with everything sports has been doing for the last 40 years and trying to get it in too. And
it's a very WWE thing. They're always behind.
Yeah.
And it's like before the TKO thing, they were probably 15 years behind the times in terms of presenting that aspect of pro wrestling. Vince was against having ads on the mat. There was that old school, because it was still family owned and operated. I know it was a public company, but it was still family owned and operated. Vince was like, no, there are certain things that inherently I do not believe belong in pro wrestling. And one of those was advertisements on the mat. And I'm sure if he looks at the product today, he's probably like, yeah, it's making him a shit ton, maybe more money than it was under me. But like, look at how corporatized it is. And look at how it does take away from, as Gunther would say, the sanctity of the mat or whatever. And I don't think it necessarily takes away from the stories that are being told. Just like in the Super Bowl, you can have thrilling games that are still thrilling, but it's just meshed in with this corporate bullshit that we all have to adjust to, because what you just said, right? Pedal to the metal. We're going to get to 2025 because we were in 2010. You know what I mean? Like, we're going to get there now overnight. And here's the thing. I don't think they're done. I think there's going to be things we haven't even thought of that they're going to be like, oh, we're going to do this now. And it's like, oh, fucking what?
Yeah. Yeah.
So get prepared for that.
Yeah, get prepared for, who knows what. Who knows what. A lot more of the zombie lumberjack matches, maybe.
I don't know. You'd think that would be like, I mean, that was kind of the weird thing that, like, that or that weird Vince Golden Egg Roman Reigns conversation thing.
Yeah.
There were some weird integrations towards the tail end of Vince's time where maybe Vince looks at the product today and was like, oh, damn, why couldn't I do that? Maybe he was trying with that shit.
That could be.
I want to step into 2025. So yeah, I hesitate to say, but there is, I've seen a lot of talk about, like, people complain about ticket prices, people complain about the ads, about them just being so obvious about wringing money out of their fans. Ironically, then people complain about AEW. Oh, I got to pay $50 for a 4-hour-long pay-per-view with no ads, or virtually no ads, and none of this, just pure, straight-up pro wrestling.
Yeah, it's 4 hours of wrestling. There's none of those video packages they have to put in the show to cover up when people are on the premium tier of Peacock get the commercials. Yeah, I know.
Right. Yeah. And so, look, I don't think there is a perfect situation in any of these things. But yeah, I don't know. Ruining is a bit much, but I can see how it could be off-putting.
Yeah.
I still watch the Super Bowl I'm not really into football, but I still watch Super Bowl every year, and I still enjoy watching the games. Even though I know that it's like some of this shit they do is so. I remember watching like one of the pre-show things, and it's just, I don't know. Did they do it? Was it in New Orleans this past year? They did like a New Orleans themed thing at some point.
I don't recall.
Forget. But it was the cringiest, like, just, it looked like something out of Broadway, I'm like, why are you doing this? It's so cheesy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Next hot take here is from a familiar name.
Oh, who's that?
To us, certainly, Steve, and people who've been listening to the show for a long time. Nerd Cubed.
Oh, man, this dude, he's been all over my Wrestle Juice hot takes. Now he's here in the Going in Raw hot.
Hi, Dan.
Hi, Dan.
Dan says, WWE really managed to burn away all that WrestleMania 40 goodwill already, huh?
I don't think it's there yet. I think we have to see it in the arena. Look, let me ask you this. Do you think, I asked you this during the Raw recap, so I'll ask it to you a different way.
Sure. Maybe you'll listen to a different answer.
What would it take for the crowd to turn on Triple H? They never even turned on Vince. Vince would show up. When Vince was gone, they'd be like, CM Punk, CM Punk. As soon as Vince shows up, oh, you're great, you're awesome, even though everybody hated the product.
Yeah.
There'd have to be some public falling out in a major way with a major star.
Yeah. I don't know, because like the most loyal WWE fans, the most ardent WWE fans, are pretty loyal to WWE. To the logo, You know, that's the thing about the NFL that was kind of a knock on them for years, is that they weren't very good at marketing the league around their major stars. They would market the shield, the logo.
The NFL logo, yeah.
And I think there's a lot of people who are WWE fans, regardless of who's really wrestling, you know, who's involved and who's not involved. And part of that probably comes with being the brand name in the industry. So I honestly don't know.
Yeah.
Honestly don't know what it would take.
I think the big thing is once the attendance starts falling off drastically, but then here's the thing, maybe not even the attendance. If we start finding out that they're doing BOGO deals on their tickets, because the ticket pricing is it's all algorithm generated these days.
Yeah, and that's why, I mean, it's all pretty consistent with like major concerts and stuff. You know, if you try to get, we joke about that Pearl Jam show that was here in Sacramento and how floor seats were outrageously expensive, especially considering what they were charging for tickets in like 1995. I understand that was 30 years ago. Even accounting for inflation, these floor tickets were outrageously priced.
Stupid, yeah.
Yeah, but I'm sure that's competitive pricing for floor seats for a lot of shows. So
that's what the market is, yeah. So once the prices start coming back down to earth, then you'll know they can't charge that amount of money. And then after that, once you start seeing empty seats, then I think we'll start talking. But I mean, look, the internet is always antsy to jump on this. But you got to step back and look at the actual metrics and say, okay, well, is the wider fan base, are they burnt out? As long as AAA, I still maintain, as long as Triple H can keep delivering big angles and a decent amount of wrestling, you know, you watch SmackDown, it's 3 hours long. They got like really long matches on SmackDown, and good wrestling. Then, you know, now if every Saturday night's main event and every premium live event, that's the thing, these premium live events are 3 hours long and they only have 5 matches. So it's not like they're jam packing 10 5-minute matches. But Saturday night's main event did have 2 5-minute matches, Cena and the women's match, I think. So I don't know. It is sort of like, all right, what are you guys going to do next? Because y'all need to start treading lightly, you know?
Yeah,
we got our eyes on you.
It's not like we're at a pivot point here where if there's a couple missteps, everybody who I said is a huge WWE fan is going to turn their back on the company for whatever reason, you know. But it definitely feels like a situation where the bloom has come off the rose a little bit. Triple H no longer has the benefit of the Bloodline saga to carry his creative, especially on SmackDown, on a week-to-week basis. So he has to come up with these sagas now. I would imagine that John Cena is pretty involved in his stuff.
I would think so, yeah.
You would think so. And so everything else is pretty much Triple H and the creative team responsibility. Give us something. And we all got so spoiled with the Bloodline stuff because so much of that was so good.
No, we did, yeah, sure.
And actually, I have some thoughts that I'll continue with in the hot take we have here in a little bit. But I know we have some sponsors to talk about, so we should do that.
All right, cool. Let's go ahead and do that.
This episode of Going in Raw is sponsored by BetterHelp. Hey guys, it's okay to struggle. 6 million men suffer from depression every year and it often goes undiagnosed. But real strength comes from opening up about what you're carrying. And that's something that I found out when I was dealing with severe anxiety in my mid-20s. After years of carrying the weight of that anxiety, I realized that I had to do something about it and started seeing a therapist who taught me the skills I needed to better cope with my anxiety.
And with over 35,000 therapists, BetterHelp is the world's largest online therapy platform, having served over 5 million people globally. BetterHelp is also making therapy far more convenient. You can join a session with a therapist with a click of a button, so you can fit therapy into your busy schedule, and you can switch therapists at any time.
As the largest online therapy provider in the world, BetterHelp can provide access to mental health professionals with a diverse variety of expertise. Talk it out with BetterHelp. Our listeners get 10% off their first month at betterhelp.com/raw. That's BetterHelp, HELP.com/raw.
And this episode of Steven Larson's Pro Wrestling Podcast is also brought to you by Cash App. Larson, I'm going to be honest with you.
All right, what is it?
Sometimes being a stepdad is about being the dad that steps up. The other day, my oldest stepkid, Marissa, was over here visiting, and she mentioned that she was low on gas, but she wasn't going to get paid until the next day. So, of course.
So she asked the old man for some money, huh?
Well, she didn't have to ask. I noticed it, and I was thinking to myself, times could be tough for young adults these days. So I was like, hey, kiddo, let me give you $50 so you can get a tank of gas.
I got to say, that was very nice of you.
I know, it was very nice. I'm a very good stepdad. So I was like, I pulled out my checkbook and I started writing. And she was like, the heck am I going to do with that, old man?
Yeah, she's got a point. You wrote a check?
Yeah, yeah, I started to. But then I was like, that's probably a good point. She was like, just Cash App me, man. And I was like, that makes a lot more sense because Cash App is a safe, easy, and fast way to send, receive, and transfer money to family and friends. It's also easy to get started. Just enter your phone or email and some other basic information. No bank account needed.
I'm guessing the money got to her quicker than the check would have, right?
Of course. It was a piece of paper. It was there super fast, actually, and it's secure and safe. Like, if you're about to send money to a sketchy account, a scam warning pops up, too.
All right, you've convinced me I'm going to download it now so you can finally pay me back for all those chicken sandwiches I've bought for you throughout the years. I checked my numbers. We might be approaching triple digits.
You were running a tab on me?
Yes, I was.
I didn't even know about the tab. All right, I got you. I'm going to write you a check. How about that?
What?
All right, I'll write you a check. I'm joking. But check it out, man. Since you're a new Cash App user, check this out. For a limited time only, new Cash App users can use our exclusive code to earn some additional cash. For real, there's no catch. Just download Cash App and sign up. Use our exclusive referral code GOINGRAW. In your profile, send $5 to a friend within 14 days, and you'll get $10 dropped right into your account. Terms apply. That's money. That's Cash App. All right, man, it's time for our next hot take. This one is from Art Guy. He says this: Seth's group isn't working. Something's missing. I know exactly what that thing is because I agree with this.
I'm not going to say
I'm not going to say it's not working. I'm going to say it could be so much better with one small tweak. Backstage segments.
Yep.
The glue that held the Bloodline stuff together were those backstage segments. They were in Roman's suite, and we got to learn the character dynamics when they weren't in the ring doing one of those awesome segments. And those backstage segments helped so much define the roles of those characters. And that's why I feel like the Solo, Fatu, Tamatanga, Tangaloa stuff didn't achieve its fullest potential because we never really got an idea of what their character dynamics were.
But that's something they're doing now. They're doing it now. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. No, that definitely goes a long way in exploring the dynamics between all the characters. Because right now, the hope was... This is not the first time we've talked about this and expressing some measure of disappointment in terms of how this storyline is played out. Because at WrestleMania, it felt seismic. It felt like a sea change was upon us. And when Braun joined, we were like, no, he's not going to be a henchman. This is an opportunity to explore some character growth for him. Now, him and Bronson Reed are henchmen at this point. They are. Because they're not exploring any of the interpersonal dynamics between anybody in the group at all. This is what I wanted to talk about in the previous thing. Yeah.
They did it briefly. They did one a couple weeks ago when Seth and Braun, he was sort of cluing Braun in, and Heyman was talking to Braun like, this is how it's going to work. This is the dynamic. This is what's going on. Now you got this other guy in. Dude, they almost threw hands before Seth separated them, embraced Bronson Reed. So we had it. We need to bring it back so we understand what the dynamics are.
Yeah, we do. That'll go a long way. Because right now they're booked like generic heel faction.
They are.
It's not interesting at all. It really isn't. And the ingredients are there to have something amazing, potentially.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And at least something really interesting. But nothing about this post-Mania feels of the same magnitude as what happened at WrestleMania. And that's a real bummer because this could have been a massive thing. This could have been the next saga.
It still could be. They still have time.
But it doesn't seem like at this juncture they're interested in exploring those dynamics. Because even early on, the Bloodline stuff, when it was just Roman and Jay, that's all it was.
I know.
Was exploring the dynamics between Roman and Jay. That was it. Yeah. Throw Jimmy into the equation too. Mm-hmm. It was good stuff. That seemed to be the MO from the very beginning with that. It's like, hey, we're going to put these characters together and see how they all kind of bounce off each other. And once that kind of they felt like, oh, maybe we've kind of extended this as long as we could. Add Sami Zayn in there, and it kicked it up to a whole other level.
Yeah.
They got to start doing that with this. Otherwise, it's going to be just kind of bleh.
It makes you wonder, like, what the makeup creatively was backstage that was driving that. Was it Heyman? Was it Roman? Was it Vince? Was it Michael Hayes? Was it, whoever else? Because it's clearly not the same recipe now with this Seth group. And I really think that the most interesting stuff is the character stuff. We need to know if Braun throws a sideways glance at Seth, if that's informed by anything that we were privy to with the backstage segments. It's like, oh, okay. So yeah, that's where the interesting stuff is. When I'll never forget when Jay said, I don't give a damn what the tribal chief says. And they got that great shot of Roman going, the fuck did you just say? And it was just everybody's jaw dropped. It's all informed by the character stuff. And whether it's backstage, put a GoPro in a car, arriving to the arena, you get 30 seconds or 2 minutes of them talking to each other, whatever it is. If Seth is trying to emulate Roman and his blueprint, then we need to see his approach in private for us to all see. In those private moments at the camera.
How they motivate that camera, if they even bother doing that, that's a separate thing.
Yeah.
Got a hot take here from Ronan the Analyst. Says CM Punk at WWE in 2025 is a boring character. He has had 2 feuds in the past 18 months since his return and just keeps rehashing the same stuff over and over. This run just feels safe and somewhat directionless.
I will say this. The one thing that WWE clearly has over AEW is they rely, and I'm not going to say it's nostalgia. I'm going to say they rely on the older characters, the history that they bring with them, and the goodwill they had already built up, the equity they had already built up. Because if this was anybody else, if this was like, I don't know, like a newer wrestler, yeah, there's nothing terribly interesting about what he's doing, but it's CM Punk. We know his story. We know that he was gone for as long as he was gone. We know that he was in AEW. And because of all that stuff and how popular he was when he was vital, when he was at his peak doing the new stuff, he has all that goodwill that people just want to see this guy in his current iteration succeed because he's like the older brother guy. So he's got all that goodwill engendered. Should it be more interesting? Probably. There should be some more interesting storytelling going on, but that's why he's so popular.
Yeah, he's kind of a nostalgia act, 2025.
I wouldn't go that far.
That's why I said kind of. I mean, because I think a lot of what you're talking about, not exclusively, but, people remember, oh, I love CM Punk in 2010, 2011. Oh, he's back in WWE? That's great.
A nostalgia act does the same stuff they were doing. Like, when the Dudleys would come back, bleh, get the tables.
Yeah, the what's up stuff. Yeah, no, I'm not saying he's 100% a nostalgia, but part of the goodwill, I think, that involves the nostalgia of what he did in his previous run there.
Sure.
Yeah, I don't really find CM Punk that interesting of a character these days. It still feels like, even though it's coming up on 2 years since he's come back, still happy to be there phase. Like the Drew stuff, there's a lot of good stuff in the feud with Drew. But at a certain point, it's like, all right, I want to see some evolution in this character now, because pretty much since the moment he's come back to wrestling, even in AEW, to what he is now, it's more or less the same Phil Brooks. We haven't seen a whole lot of evolution in terms of the CM Punk character in the last 4 years.
What would it look like though? At a certain point, once you're old, it's like, why are you acting different now? I disagree that he's still the happy to be there guy. He is. I'll put it this way: he's still Walmart greeter.
Yeah.
We saw that every time he opens a show and he says, "Doesn't it feel great to be alive?" It's
Here's
definitely
the thing,
Walmart greeter.
I'm not even necessarily saying that the character of CM Punk is still in the happy to be there phase.
Oh, Phil loves being there.
I think Phil is still happy to be there.
As well, he should be. He's getting paid a lot of money.
But
He's the
like
most
we were
popular
talking
guy they
about,
got.
Pearl Jam in their prime, there was a hunger.
Yeah, he ain't ever gonna be CM Punk 2010,
And that's not what I'm asking
gonna
for.
be that again.
I'm not necessarily
2011.
asking for that, And I get it. The hunger he had from, when he showed up at WWE to 2011, that ain't coming back. It's not.
Because management loves him.
Yes.
Management didn't love him before.
No.
He succeeded despite management.
That chip on his shoulder's gone.
Oh, it's gone. It's super
He'll
gone.
probably main event night 2 WrestleMania next year.
And with good reason. He's incredibly
Popular. That being said, as a character right now, CM Punk is not that interesting.
No, he's not. But you know what? I do appreciate. I'm gonna say he's not. The character is not the happy to be there. The character, he wants that title. He's hungry. He goes after people. He's not a doormat.
Yeah.
I like that. Honestly, you know what he needs? You know what he desperately needs? And unfortunately, we're not going to get it. A Kevin Owens feud. That could be game-changing.
That would be. Kevin Owens be call him out. Hey, you're boring.
Like, remember that time you yelled at me for wrestling in a shirt or whatever it was?
Did you notice on Saturday's main event you wrestled half the match with your T-shirt on?
You know what would also be, what could be interesting, and I'm kind of surprised. After watching last night, I was like, why haven't they done this? Maybe the injuries didn't line up. AJ Styles and CM Punk. Where's that match?
I know.
Where's that match?
I know. They shook hands when it was just the two of them in there.
Yeah. Dude, what the fuck? That's a big match right there.
I know. He's going to be feuding with Seth Rollins for the rest of this year and part of next year. Guaranteed.
I don't know. Who's like, so he had the big Drew thing. What's he been doing this year? Seth?
I'll say this.
More Seth? Jesus.
If his goal during his second run at WWE is first and foremost, I want gold, I want a title. And I know he got his WrestleMania main event last year. And he wants that night 2 main event. Those things are going to be parallel courses, and it's going to happen probably this next year. But if you want to see the character change and evolve, where's the measure of desperation? Time's ticking. He's not getting any younger. This contract's about to expire.
Dude, I can't. Okay, but nah, I don't. How many times? That story's been told too many times, man. That to me screams Copeland.
Oh, you're comparing Punk to Cope now, huh?
With that story, that's exactly who he is.
Edge had the most kind of lackadaisical approach, like, oh, time's ticking. I better get to it.
Lackadaisical. That guy was always yelling right into the camera with his big eyes.
Yeah, but
Hey,
I never really felt apart from him yelling in the camera, I never felt really any real urgency from him to.
Let's do this.
What?
Let's do this. I don't think Punk wants to draw attention to the fact that he's old. AJ Styles is a feud that I think would be killer.
Sure.
Because didn't they have beef or something? Didn't AJ have an issue with Punk?
I think at one point.
Something weird. Like, AJ's always been so diplomatic in his things, but I feel like Punk was one. I don't know. Maybe people in the comments can clue us in.
Yeah.
I want to see a Styles feud. Bizarrely, I don't care about a Punk versus Gunther feud. I don't care about that. Jacob Fatu and Punk. I know they're on different brands. I don't care.
Yeah.
That could be fucking cool.
Could be.
Who's somebody else that could push Punk into interesting territory?
LA Knight.
Shut the fuck up. God damn it, dude. The young up-and-coming LA Knight.
Exactly.
Pushing him into uncomfortability.
Yeah.
I don't know how Phil would deal with that guy.
Exactly.
I don't know how you deal
if
with
it's 100% Teflon LA Knight.
Yeah. Oh, that could be a lot of fun. Talk about
be
uncomfortable.
Fun.
Yeah. I don't know, man. Boy, that's a weird one. But yeah, I don't know. Who's somebody else that could like really just throw him for a loop a little bit?
Kevin Owens is great. Kevin Owens would be awesome.
Kevin Owens is number one, dude. That would be killer.
Heel Sami
But like
Zayn
Roman, I don't need Roman and Punk.
No, I don't really care about that at this point.
I don't need that.
Heel Sami. I think heel Sami Zayn could bring something out of Phil.
Documentarian Sammy.
Exactly. Exactly.
Remember they made him a bad guy by making him a documentarian?
I know.
Was that Vince's shot at the Wrestling with Shadows guys?
Oh, maybe.
Yeah, let us know in the comments who would push Punk to be more interesting.
Yeah, because right now he is kind of dull.
Because Fatu I think would be interesting. Fatu doing the yada. Dude, try getting against Fatu on the mic. That guy is scary.
Yeah, I know.
He's scary on the mic.
He is. Got a hot take here from Go Birds. Says Jey Uso has been the best booked world heavyweight champion. They finally got the world heavyweight champion, mixing it up with the undisputed champion without a match motivating it. Obviously, Gunther and Cody were in each other's orbit around Crown Jewel last year. Mm-hmm. But that just felt kind of like, oh, this is an obligation we have for the show. Otherwise, they wouldn't have done it.
Let me suggest this. If Jey Uso is still champion by the day after SummerSlam,
sure,
this will be the best run of anybody with this particular title, because there's so many people gunning for him and he's involved in so many things. And if he doesn't drop that title, if they find a way for him to beat everybody put in front of him.
But the caveat is who's put in front of him.
Yeah, I know, because that's the thing. Right now you got how many people talking about him? And if they do that with everybody, Punk, Sammy, Seth, Gunther.
Yeah, then Gunther, of course. But, I don't know if they're going to have all those matches between now and SummerSlam for Jey and he wins the ball.
No, I know. I'm just saying, if he's able to survive all this somehow, and he's integral to all of that shit going on.
Yeah, it'll be great.
I could see this being story-wise the best booked championship run for this particular title.
Yeah, I could too. Totally could.
I don't think. What do you think the odds are he's going to make it to SummerSlam, to pass SummerSlam with the title?
If he does make it through SummerSlam, it's not going to be facing all of those
Seth,
opponents.
Punk, Sammy.
No.
Yeah.
Jabroni Town here with the hot take says LA Knight needs to win Money in the Bank or he loses credibility.
Wait, what is this? 2024? Is this 2023? Every single year, this is the thing.
I don't know how he's going to lose credibility because he is kind of Teflon.
He is Teflon.
He's going to be over based on who he is.
He gets huge reactions,
regardless if he wins or loses. Most of the time. Now, if he goes on, if the tables were turned, he loses to Solo Sikoa 42 times in a row. Will that change things? I don't know. Probably not, because it'll probably be wonk finishes each and every time.
Let him be the guy that dethrones Cena. Cody doesn't need it.
No, Cody doesn't need
LA
it.
Knight.
LA Knight would get a lot from it.
He would. Absolutely.
Dr. Professor says, a hot take says, WWE drafts need to be like actual sports drafts, exclusively NXT call-ups to the main roster. Seeing main roster stars just swapping brands is mostly boring. I need to see main roster stars sweating about which brand they're going to. You got to have everybody in the green room, people getting the phone calls from their agents. We're going to draft you at this spot. Doesn't happen.
Obafemi has fallen to the third round.
And he's sitting there all by himself in the green room.
Yeah, he's sitting there stewing. Why doesn't anybody want me?
Like, there's so many storyline opportunities you could tell involving the draft, and they just don't do them.
They just don't.
It's like the draft's an obligation because, we want to move a couple people around.
I think they think that shit's too hard.
Probably. Like, they set up, they have, they used to have the war rooms for each brand, and they'd cut to them, and Cletus the robot was in one of them when SmackDown was on Fox. But it never really played out like an actual sports draft, and the storylines that are involved in those.
So I will say this. I do think that, because you and I had this idea, there should be, each GM should have like keepers. They should have protected roster members. And then everybody else. You can't do exclusively NXT call-ups in a draft. There aren't enough of them.
Yeah.
So, I would say like there got to be rules. GMs, they get, a certain number of NXT picks. Shawn Michaels gets to protect certain people. And then they get to protect, maybe the champions are off the board.
That's what they did last time, wasn't it? They took the champions out of the draft pool.
Oh, maybe. So they were partway there. But yeah, it needs to be more of a character thing. I don't want to work on Fridays. I hope I get drafted to
Or I don't want to be on
Raw.
the show with this performer because
Right.
we have long-standing beef, you know?
Right, exactly. Can't trust it. I don't like Adam Pearce. I like Nick Aldis's philosophy. There should be all that stuff.
Yeah, you could do some fun stuff with that. They just don't do it.
Trades, cash considerations,
Future picks.
future picks. Yeah.
Which GM do you think? Which GM do you think would have a approach similar to the Oklahoma City Thunder, just accumulating draft assets through the years?
Bro, come on. It's all this.
It's
It's all this. Of
He's
course
the
it
Sam
is.
Presti of WWE.
Yeah, appears to be a mess. An absolute mess. Drafted 3. You draft. Yeah. Anyway.
Got a hot take here from AJ Daniels. Says, I don't see the appeal of Hangman Paige. His reign as champion wasn't all that great. I found the feud with Swerve to be stupid with the house burning down and needles and all, and he just seems bland.
Okay. I don't know. Well, I go back to what my dad told me. Either you get it or you don't.
Yeah.
If you don't get it, I can't explain it to you. And if you do, welcome aboard. I don't know what to do with that. Sorry. Hangman's great.
Hangman is great. The thing about Hangman that he does so well that you don't see it as often in wrestling as you do in other visual storytelling mediums, subtlety, nuance. He's very good with that.
Well, there's also a commitment to long-term change.
Yeah.
That's what you don't see.
And he's always consistent with his character's motivations.
This guy who's probably, and I think we've heard this anecdotally, and you can kind of see it, is like the sweetest actual individual. As a performer, is doing a masterful job with this maniacal, paranoid, it's a wonderful performance. It's a masterful performance.
It really is. It really is. He should be nominated for an Emmy.
Yeah, absolutely.
Tee says AEW has the best pay-per-view track record in wrestling history in the span of 6 years. There hasn't been any bad ones. The worst ones were still decent. The best ones are the best wrestling shows you'll see. I will give AEW credit that for the most part, obviously there's some shows that I've enjoyed more than others. They're pretty consistent.
Yeah, I'm mulling over what could possibly be like
that one
the
pay-per-view where it
counter to
was
this.
Adam Cole versus Chris Jericho in the Falls Count Anywhere match. I remember that one being very good.
Yeah, but like I tend to, sometimes there are stats or facts or ideas that you don't even consider, but dude, yeah, they've been around for 6 years, and it's rare that they put on a stinker of a pay-per-view. You get people like us bitching about the length of the pay-per-views, but they give you a shit ton
They give you value
to
for your
consume.
money. They do.
I mean, dude, honestly, like, philosophically speaking, I think the prospect of us doing a review and like a watch along for a lot of these things is not the ideal way to watch it, which is why we've stopped doing the watch alongs for AEW pay-per-views. But goddamn, yeah, no, it's a hell of a run. It's a hell of a run. Absolutely.
Yeah, it definitely has been. Metal Pulse with the hot takes says Steven Larson's pro wrestling podcast is a better name than Going in Raw. I think we got a discussion, or sorry, discussion needs to be had whenever John Cena drops the title.
Yeah, I can tell. I've noticed you've dropped many hints along the way that is. I kind of feel like I know where you're leaning. So that's something that we're gonna have to talk about. I'm open to anything. On like as a shoot. I think it would be more an issue of taking that leap into the vital branding of the show. When I say vital, it's one thing for us to have this up here. It's another thing to change it in the audio format, the meta of that. It's another thing to, okay, do we then have to reach out to our management and tell the sponsors the codes need to change? Right now we got, as we said earlier, we got a Cash App code. It's Going Raw.
Yep.
Does that need to change? So there are more technical issues that we would need to solidify and address. We'd basically have to tell our management people, hey, This is something we want to do. What do we change the avatar to on YouTube? So there are other things to consider. Mm-hmm. I think this is a terrific and wonderfully organic test.
Yeah.
To gauge reaction and whatnot. It's easy to say, and it's totally true. Nothing about the substance of the show has changed at all. At all.
Nor will it.
It is merely a name. It's the same two idiots doing this shit.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean the only thing is yeah, I don't know.
Mm-hmm.
I was gonna say this isn't even. I'm not. If somehow, some way, one of us were to blink off the face of the earth.
Oh wow, getting heavy here.
Then, well, it's also a consideration. You know, if something happened to you, I'd keep going.
Steve Pro Wrestling Podcast.
I know that's what I have to be.
Yeah.
You know, but then I don't know. I would probably just make a big deal about rebranding it again to the Wrestle Juice Pro Wrestling Podcast.
Wrestle Party.
Yeah, exactly. So, you know, I don't think that's going to happen. I'm hoping that we're going to retire together to Florida in the same community.
No. Mm-mm. Nope.
We're not going to go to Del Boca Vista?
Afraid not.
No?
Nope.
What a bummer. So yeah. So, you know, I like this hot take is in the same thread as the Dan Nerd Cubed one because he, of course, named it Going In Raw.
He did. He christened the show, yes. All right. Time for the self-indulgent grunge hot takes. This one is from Mike Romo. Says, grunge hot takes, Stone Temple Pilots were way better than Pearl Jam.
Okay.
The first three Stone Temple Pilots albums are heavier, edgier, and more diverse than the first three Pearl Jam albums. And even number 4 and Shangri-La Dee-Da clear anything Pearl Jam has done since Vitology. And I believe if Scott didn't pass away and STP stayed on good terms, they would still be making better music to this day.
So, when did Scott Weiland pass?
I don't remember.
Mid 2010s? Is that what it was?
I want to say, yeah.
I want to say it was 2016. Let's see what I got right here. Scott Weiland. So, he passed in 2015. I was close. Oh, it was December, too, so I was very close. Boy, he's 48. My goodness gracious. I appreciate Stone Temple. I like Stone. I'm not even going to say I appreciate it. I actually really like Stone Temple Pilots. And you know what? I will say this. I am very grateful that Mike Romo didn't just say Stone Temple Pilots way better than Pearl Jam and left it at that. Mm-hmm. He actually gave us a breakdown of why he thinks that. It's all subjective, obviously.
Yeah.
I do kind of take issue with if he didn't pass away and they stayed on good terms, they'd still be making better music to this day. Better music than Pearl Jam to this day. It's the bar is so low. So maybe that's true.
Yeah, that could be.
Maybe that's true. I like Stone Temple Pilots.
Yeah.
I still maintain. I think you could probably say that their shit is heavier. Their early stuff is heavier than Pearl Jam stuff.
Yeah.
You can even maybe say it's more diverse. Now, that doesn't necessarily speak to quality.
Vitology is a pretty diverse album.
Stone Temple Pilots really changed up their shit between the first 3 albums, though.
Yeah.
There is an intangible at play that I simply feel Pearl Jam has a large edge on, and that I've said it before. They always came off as a hungrier band, and Eddie's lyrics, especially those first 3 albums, were such brilliant uses of storytelling and metaphor. And I never got that same thing from Stone Temple Pilots. Big bang, baby, it's a crash, crash, crash. I want to it's Weiland's lyrics. Weiland's solo album actually had some pretty decent lyrics.
Yeah.
But the first 3 albums, lyrically speaking, I don't think he holds a candle to what Eddie was doing. I don't think he's close to it.
Yeah. And obviously I think Pearl Jam probably had more of an impact.
Oh, definitely.
You know.
Yeah, the influence, the legacy of Pearl Jam is far greater.
is humongous. Not to, discredit Stone Temple Pilots because they were immensely popular.
Pearl Jam, dude, if you remember.
Oh, I do. Yeah.
Everybody, bro.
Yeah.
Everybody was trying to do Eddie's voice.
Mm-hmm.
Everybody was.
Mm-hmm.
To a ridiculous. People made millions off of trying to imitate Eddie Vedder.
Yeah.
That legacy is like unmatched. It's huge. Not about unmatched, but it's really huge.
It's pretty massive. All right, last one here. This one just speaks to me. Possibly Maddie here says Sonic Youth is one of the most influential bands of all time. Thirst and Forever changed how guitar was played, and Kim Gordon changed what it meant to be cool. You should say Thurston and Lee Ronaldo. Both guitar players of Sonic Youth. Now, listen, I'm a huge Sonic Youth fan.
Oh, yeah, you're number one.
And they did a lot to bring kind of avant-garde fringe music to the fringes of the mainstream.
Mm-hmm.
But, if had they not signed to Geffen and paved the way for Nirvana to sign with the same label, who knows what would have happened.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not giving Sonic Youth credit for Nirvana blowing up, but,
sometimes there's a domino.
They toured through, 91. There's a whole documentary, The Year Punk Broke, about Sonic Youth touring in Europe in 91 with Nirvana. It's good. Go check it out.
Maybe I will.
Yeah. Anybody. Did you ever listen? Did I ever send you those Sonic Youth playlists that I made? Because you're going through a bit of a 90s revival in your musical tastes of late. And then I made some playlists. I don't remember if I ever sent them to you.
I don't know. The problem is, it's on Spotify. I don't have Spotify.
Yeah, you have Apple Music, right? I don't have that.
And I was gonna go through and do recreate the Pavement one you sent me, and then it just sort of fell off. I started just listening to the albums and it's in their entirety.
Yeah, that's a better way to go about it, honestly.
Yeah, but yeah, I don't know. I like. I'm not obviously nearly as familiar with Sonic Youth as you are. But I think I've tried a couple of their albums here and there, and I never really stuck with it. Not to say I didn't appreciate it, because I did, but yeah, I've always appreciated that they have been a very impactful band when it came to, again, people making millions upon millions of dollars thanks to their influence.
Yeah.
So
that's true.
Anyways, that's gonna do it for just millions of dollars trying to be Eddie Vedder.
Yeah.
So much money.
Yeah, you put a little feedback in your music. Oh, look, they were inspired by Sonic Youth. Millionaires.
Yeah, millions of dollars.
Millionaires. Several times over.
That's going to do it for the show. Thanks, everybody, for tuning in. Until next time, we'll see you guys around.
Goodbye.